This was this past May. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. The complex has no security guards whatsoever, with one other roommate. We'll call her Emily. It's also important to know that a lot of people will ask Emily if we are twins. We look very similar. She and I both spend almost every night at our boyfriend's house, and rarely are home. One night around 8:45 p.m. I was home cleaning before I left to go to my boyfriend's house. I ran to get something from my car and came back into my apartment. Locking the door behind me, 5 minutes after, I hear a knock at my door. I'm already a paranoid person, so I got a little scared. I knew it wasn't Emily, because she would have called to tell me she forgot her key. I tried to ignore it. Then a second knock. These also weren't innocent knocks. They sounded like a cop knock. Immediately after the second knock, I FaceTime my boyfriend. He is convincing me to look through the peephole. I look, and no one else is there. I say, okay, I'm going to pack my stuff and come over. I ran and locked myself in the bathroom, crying until he got there to get me, and no one was at my door. The next day, my boyfriend and I stopped at my apartment, so I could change and get ready for a Cinco de Mayo gathering. Less than 8 people to stay social distance. No knocks that day. The day after I got home, Emily was getting kitty litter and was going to meet me at the apartment since we were both too scared to be there alone. I get home and was sitting on my phone scrolling through TikToks. About 10 minutes into the scroll, I hear the same knock. I look through the peephole and call Emily and describe to her what the guy looked like. She has no idea who it can be. I then watched him walk away and thought maybe he will stop. Another 5 minutes pass and he's back knocking. I FaceTime Emily again and she tells me to open the door. Don't ever do this. I opened the door and the guy was a bit muscular. Looked a little bit older than me. I'm 23. And was someone who I'd never seen around my apartment complex before. He seemed shocked that I answered. The conversation. Him. Oh, is this a bad time? Yes. I was just wondering. Do you have a printer? No. Oh, okay. Slowly walks away. I also thought it was weird that someone was asking for a printer, being that all classes were moved to online format, and we're supposed to be in quarantine. And also, if you need a printer that bad, and someone doesn't answer the first knock, why would you keep trying? Especially when you don't know that person. We told a bunch of people about the knocking in our complex, and one other apartment said that they had the same issue. They were also 2 girls living alone. The next day, Emily went back with her boyfriend. As she was leaving the apartment, she heard from a balcony next to ours, "Yo, is that her?" She turned around and the 2 men ran back inside. We told the apartment complex and called the cops. They said they can't really do anything unless the guy's present at our door knocking. After this, we installed a motion detection camera and put a sign up on our window. We have cameras. You're being recorded. Since then, Emily has moved out. I have 2 new male roommates who are seen coming in and out of the apartment, and no one has came and knocked. So, mystery knocking man, let's not meet again. This happened to a friend of mine who lived in the same neighborhood as me. When we were about 8 to 9 years old, my friend E and her family lived just a few houses down from the street from mine. We lived in a neighborhood where almost everyone knew each other. The biggest worry we ever had was that an outsider would come to the neighborhood and cause trouble. Some people left their homes unlocked because we felt that safe. There was an incredibly nice family that lived directly across the street from E's house. A mom, a dad, and a 16-year-old son. And their mentally challenged son, who was 22 years old. I'll call him Tim. Tim was always home because he wasn't employed due to his disability. But his parents were working full-time and his brother had school. All day, every day, he would be outside waving and smiling at anyone who drove or walked by. Big smiles, showing all of his teeth and sometimes giggling, just out of the pure excitement and happiness of interacting with other people. Since he spent most of his time alone, he was not creepy. One day, E was sick and didn't go to school. Even though she was only about 8 or 9 years old, E was allowed to stay home sick by herself. Plus, her mom was going to be home around 2 anyways, since she was only working part-time, and the neighborhood was safe. E locked all the doors except for the one that led into the garage. They used this as their front door, because it was easier in those cookie-cutter homes to just open the garage, pull in and get out of the car, close the garage and walk into their house, through the unlocked door that led from the inside of the garage to the inside of their home. This is obviously not the safest way to protect your home from intruders, but we literally all did it, as if a flimsy garage door could keep anyone from getting into what they wanted. The worst part is that they had an outside cat, and kept the garage door cracked just enough for him to get inside for his food or shelter if he needed to. So, he's asleep, feeling sick, and with a fever. All the doors and windows are locked, except for the door that leads to the cracked garage door. Tim was bound to know she was home alone, since he was outside the front of his house all the time. He wakes up to the pounding at the front door. Startled, she walks downstairs and looks through the peephole. It's Tim. She cracks the door and says something along the lines of how he notices everything, and would guard her home since she was home alone. She said thanks, but there was no need to, and to have a good day. It was beautiful weather, and he looked pissed. He got angry and said, "You think I can't do it because I'm dumb? But you watch and see me. I ain't dumb." She said sorry. She didn't mean it like that. But she had to rest now. She dozed off and woke up to a noise downstairs in the kitchen, the room the door from the garage led to. She hadn't heard the garage door open, but she was sick, so she just figured she was in a deep sleep and just hadn't noticed. Completely disoriented from the time she looked over at the alarm clock. It was 10:20, way too early for her mom to be home. At that moment, she heard noises again downstairs. She didn't call out. She had been sleeping in her parents' bedroom and ran into their bathroom, slamming the door loudly. Then she remembered their bathroom door had no lock on it. The noise she made slamming the door alerted the intruder to where she was in the house, and big footsteps started coming upstairs. She moved quickly and quietly to her parents' closet, which was on the other side of the big room. She closed the doors and hid behind some clothes, all the time thinking how someone could have gotten inside. She remembered that the garage door was cracked for the cat, slightly, but not close enough for a thin person to slip underneath. Tim walks into the bedroom. Tim is tall and thin. She can see him through the slatted closet doors. She sees him holding a knife and did everything she could not to scream. He quickly went to the master bathroom where she was just moments before. These cookie-cutter houses only have about 3 floor plan layouts, so it wasn't hard for him to find. He looked inside the bathroom and didn't see her, then started making loud throaty noises, like someone would if they're frustrated and angry, while pacing the entire house. She stayed in the closet for hours, even after she heard him exit through the front door. She stayed until her mom got home. She was crying hysterically and told her mom what happened. Had she not been so upset and had one of the kitchen knives not been left on the front door, her mom might have blamed it on being delirious from a high fever because nobody would expect Tim to do that. The police were called and an official report filed. I'm not sure if he had any charges pressed against him, because after she told me the story once, she refused to talk about it again. I overheard her parents a few times talking about the situation to my own parents, but never heard what the consequences were. He was so traumatized that she went to therapy afterwards for several years, and still wouldn't talk to anyone about it because she didn't want to remember or relive the experience. We even moved into an apartment together years and years later for college purposes. She never talked about Tim. It was like he never existed, and I never asked. I noticed she always locked the front door, which you should of course. Always locked the door that led to the patio/balcony, even though we were on the 7th level, and always locked her bedroom door, to which she added an additional lock. And when she locked all these doors and the windows, she always checked 3 times. every single time. I often wonder if there was more to the story that E told me. We were kids after all, and sometimes kids don't want to explain things that they don't understand. It is terrifying to think of what his intentions were, and if perhaps he did find E, and something else happened. As horrifying as the experience must have been for her, it made a huge statement in the neighborhood for everyone to be more careful. I will always make sure everything is locked. I don't want to ever meet you again, Tim. Okay, so I literally just found about the r/let's not meet subreddit, and thought it might be a good way for me to evacuate, since I still make nightmares about what happened. Also, forgive my bad English, I'm Belgian. My name is Jaiji, and I was 14 at the time. It happened 4 years ago. That day, my little brother Noah was sick and had already spent 3 days in bed. He had a high fever. No big deal, the only real trouble was that he was 6 at the time, and obviously got our entire attention during that week. So yeah, that day my parents went out to buy his medicine and left me home alone to take care of him. They also asked me to bring all my brother's toys inside, so they wouldn't get wet from the rain that was coming later that day. So I did what I was asked, and I took care of Noah. I also brought some of the toys that were laying outside. I was pretty tired that day and thought I could do the rest later. So I went inside and sat down on the couch to watch TV before I had to prepare my brother's lunch. I was zapping through the channels and wasn't really aware what was going on around me. About 10 minutes later, I heard 3 honking noises coming from the side of the street, and didn't really pay attention to it. It could have been neighbors or a car passing by. Then, I realized how late it was, and then I had to go to the kitchen and start making my brother's lunch. Noah was resting upstairs, by the way. So, I was at the kitchen cooking his meal. The thing was, my kitchen has a large window, offering a view of the street. And I saw my neighbor a bit worried, out of his car looking around. Once again, I didn't pay attention to it, and was focused on the food. At a moment, I opened the fridge and had a weird feeling, like someone was there staring at me. I closed the fridge door, looked at the window, and yes, there was a person standing outside, close to the window, staring at me. Now, I don't know why, but I don't remember what the guy looked like. It was really weird. Anytime I try to figure it out, it's like there's something blocking me. It's crazy. So, anyways, there's a stranger standing outside staring at me. I wanted to scream for help, but it just wouldn't come. I felt like the only good thing was to take my brother and leave the house from our back door. A bit excessive, I know, but I was 14, and I imagined the guy would just break the window at any moment and come in. So, on my way to Noah's room, I noticed the guy following me very calmly through the window. Imagine my surprise when I found that the front door was a bit open. I certainly didn't close it correctly when I brought my toys back in. Because of that now, I have a habit to check it at least 3 times, if I lock the door for sure. When I saw the door, I understood I eventually got a few seconds to go upstairs, instead of closing it, because he was so close he would just get in before I reached it. So instead, I ran upstairs, rushed into my brother's room, and closed the bedroom door. Noah was very weak and kind of upset because the noise I made downstairs. It can seem unimportant, but hearing him complain made me realize we just couldn't leave anymore. And while I was thinking, I heard someone coming upstairs, and I literally shit myself. In a desperate move, I opened the window, and fortunately just underneath it stood Noah's big-ass trampoline, the one with the nets around it. The only thing reasonable for me was to throw my brother onto it, and just hoping we wouldn't break our bones. Luckily, the first floor was something like 4 meters high. When we landed on the trampoline, I could hear the bedroom door open. Now, Noah says while getting off, he saw a face. Apparently it was someone with a beard, white eyebrows, and a hoodie, with a great psycho smile. I didn't, but I do believe him. We got off and we started running down the street. While I was running, I heard a voice behind us screaming, Gigi! I turned around and was happy to see it was my neighbor, the one observing the street previously. That was waving at us to come inside his house. I was very confident at the idea to come inside his house, as we used to come over and play there with their kids, so we came in. He closed the door, and we waited in there for our parents to come back. While we were there with his wife and kids, he was waiting out there. Funny thing, he explained later that he saw everything, and he honked at the stalker because he was standing in the middle of the street, looking at the house. He also saw the guy walking into the house and a girl throwing her brother through the window. It was funny when he told it. So my parents came back and were ironically planning a good little evening. They even brought pizzas and a movie along with the medicine. So, imagine how stupid they looked with all of that when they saw the police car and us waiting with them. So we explained everything, and we later moved into another house. We were already looking for a new place to go way before that, but that's really what gave us the motivation to search for real. We don't know what happened, but when the cops came in, the back door was open, and there was no one in, which means he ran away. As I said, I still think about it sometimes, and there's no way I will ever know who the guy was. I also realized if I had done what I had asked, and had brought the trampoline back in the garage as I was supposed to, well, I probably wouldn't be here to tell that story. The only thing I regret is that now Noah is 10. We got rid of his old toys and that trampoline, which means we can't make that jumping thing if it happened again. So, anyways, creepy stalker guy, well, that's not me. So, this happened about 13 years ago. I was 10 at the time, my brother was 8. We had just moved to a new town that year, and the Walmart here has this sweet arcade up near the service desk. So, every time my parents would bring us grocery shopping, they'd give us a few dollars and let us play in the arcade. The town had an incredibly low crime rate, and the arcade is at the front of the store, where dozens of people are checking out. So, what could possibly go wrong? My brother is playing the claw machine while I'm standing on the side of the machine, trying to help him angle the claw perfectly, above the stuffed animals he's trying to get. Suddenly, this random hillbilly walks up to the claw machine next to us, inserts a quarter and begins moving the claw around. But for most of this time, he's making eye contact with my brother, and smiling. Not even watching the game. He's not talking to us, just staring and smiling. He has long, thin brown and silver hair, pulled back in a loose ponytail at the base of his skull, a camo trucker hat, and long, scraggly beard. I remember vividly the way he smelled: stale beer, ashtray, and something that smelled like sweat yet sour dirt, or fungus. He tried making small talk with my brother and I, who were raised to be aware of strangers, but still be polite. Eventually we got bored of the game we were playing, and I asked my brother to follow me to a new game, on the opposite side of the arcade. A few seconds later, the man follows us, stationing himself once again at the claw machine next to us. At some point, an overweight lady walks in and says to the hillbilly, "What are you doing to these little kids?" and snickers at me. He replies, "I'm trying to win them some stuffed animals." She then begins playing the claw machine on the other side of us, so that my brother and I are sandwiched between these two strange hillbillies. His comment comes across as weird to me, because previously I thought that he was maybe trying to win something for his kids, but this entire time he'd just been following my brother and I from game to game, trying to win us a toy. This had been going on for maybe 20 minutes at this point. They followed us to several different machines and spent a lot of money. The games they were all playing were 25 cents per play. Each time my brother and I switched machines, they'd follow us. The hillbilly says to the lady, "I'm out of money. You got any?" She says, "Nah, I'm broke too." My brother says, "I have $1 still." Now, this is the part that really scared me. I remember listening to these two talk about some weird things with us, asking if I have a boyfriend, asking where we go to school and where our parents work, asking if we've ever done drugs, etc. But when my brother said he had $1, she responded with the most terrifying thing I've heard from them yet. The woman suddenly burst out. "Well, shit, then give it to him, boy." Her face was red. The tone in which she shouted was so ear-piercing, and the guy wrenching, that I could feel blood drain from my face. My brother looked like he was about to cry. He hands her the $1, and her face lightens up. She laughs it off, almost like she was trying to make it seem like she was joking, when she yelled at us. My father walks up a couple minutes later. As I turn to tell him that these people have spent close to $15 to win a toy for us, they leave hurriedly. But before he gets a good look at them, my dad is livid. He takes us up to the front desk and tells them what I told him. They make an announcement on the intercom to keep an eye out for these people, and to report to an employee if they see them. They then call the police. I don't actually remember this part, or much anything after my father arrives, but this is what he told me. They never did find the couple. The police reviewed security cameras, too blurred to make out any physical details, and told my parents that the couple left the store immediately after my father showed up, without any groceries. Every time I see a man or a woman in Walmart that looks as I remember them, I get anxiety and try to avoid them. So, to the hillbilly couple lurking in Walmart, I hope to never, ever meet you again. Hey, I'm new to Reddit and have been binge reading all the posts here from the past year. That made me remember some weird things that happened to me and my mom. Sorry about the English, it's not my native language. So a little context to help the story flow. My parents got divorced when I was 10. I'm a female, by the way. And my brother was 8. They had bought a house in a fairly big land and decided to split it. The house was demolished and my mom was building a new house to live with me and my brother. We lived in a very small city that is known for its safety. Fast forward to when I was 15. Now I'm 25, and the house still wasn't ready. Me and my brother and my mom lived in an apartment really close to where they were building the house, so we would check it from time to time. It was an evening when me and my mom were getting back from the market, and decided to go check the house. As we're parking in front of the house, the car light shows a man trying to jump the fence to get in. I was really freaked out, but my mom stepped out of the car and shouted to the man, "What the hell do you think you're trying to do?" It was an old guy, maybe in his late 60s. He was really tall, wide, and skinny. He was starting to go bald, having hair just on the sides of his head. He just sent me really creepy vibes. He jumped out of the fence and looked kind of scared. He wasn't expecting someone to show up because nobody lived at the place yet. He said he lived in the apartment building next to the house, and he was trying to cut down a branch from a tree that was knocking on his window. So my mom said that he was trespassing, and if he wanted to do something in her house, he would have to contact her. She yelled at him to go away and never come back. We went home and never really talked about it. A few months later, my family finally moved to that house. It's a cute house with lots of trees and a space for my dog to run free. At the time, we had 3 dogs, 2 small ones and a border collie we had rescued. Every day we could hear a teenage female voice yelling at the apartment building next to our house. We figured out it was just some teenage drama, because we could hear her saying things every teenage said to their parents, like, "I don't want to live here," or, "You don't get me at all." So we never really did anything about it. Some time passed and my best friend moved into an apartment in that building. She said she could hear the teen yelling at her father. Guess who the father was? Yes, the man that was trying to get inside of my yard. That freaked me out a little bit, but I didn't have any proof he was doing something to her. One evening I was eating some fruit in the front of my house when my dog and I heard someone scream, like a man and a woman were fighting. I looked around and figured out it was coming from the building next to my house. As I looked to the building, I saw a woman falling from the balcony, but couldn't see if anyone had pushed her. So I called an ambulance and they were really fast to get here, and took her to the hospital. At the same time, the police came and took the man that I couldn't get a good look at to see if it was the same man that trespassed here. I didn't get to know what happened that day, or who the man was. My dad started building his house next to my mom's. I spent a lot of time in my best friend's apartment. That was just by the creepy guy's apartment. As I said, my yard was filled with trees, and sometimes we could see animals there, like lizards, snakes, foxes, possums. This day, me and my friend were in her balcony, and could see a lizard walking in the wall that separated the house and the building. In the balcony next to hers, the creepy man showed up with a gun, trying to shoot that lizard. We started screaming for him, begging him not to kill the lizard. He looked at us surprised. I guess he thought he was alone. He said nothing, just went back in his apartment. I told my dad about it, and he said I shouldn't interact with that man. I was already 18, and things started to calm down, or so I thought. It was an afternoon around 1600, and I was home alone. I decided to go for a walk with my border collie dog. She was really sweet, and I used to ride my bike as she followed me running, so I did that. As we were coming back to my house, just passing by the building, that man threw us a really big rock at my dog. She was running, so the rock hit her leg. I cursed at him and got back into my house, looking at my dog to see if she was hurt. I told my mom, and she said I should never walk alone. Some days later, I found a really cute but skinny cat at my college. I was sitting down smoking, and this cat jumped into my lap. I came back to watch a class with him in my lap. He slept there for the whole class. I came back home with him. He was orange and fierce, as he was a street cat before. We let him go for walks in my street. Everyone liked him. He was really friendly and asked for everyone to pet him. People led him to their houses and frequently sent my mom pics of the cat on their yard or sofa. So we never thought that he was bothering someone by walking around. And at this time, we were forgetting about the violent nature of our neighbor. My family went on a trip to visit my grandpa, and my dad stayed to take care of our pets. He said one night he heard some footsteps around his house, but as he walked out the front door, he couldn't see anyone. He thought it was just the dogs messing around, and went back into his house to sleep. When we came back, we realized that one of the trees in my mom's house was dying. It was a really big tree. We think it's about 100 years old. This tree is the biggest one in the yard, and it was always so beautiful. I should mention that this is the tree that the man was complaining about the first time we met him. So my dad went to look at the tree, and figured out that it had a lot of holes in it. He said it's a way to get poison inside of a tree to kill it. He also said we shouldn't tell my mom because it was going to scare her and make her really sad, because the trees were the main reason to buy that place. I never told her about it. Some time passed, and me and my brother moved to another town to finish our studies. I wanted to take my cat with me, but my mom said it was going to be hard for him to adapt living in an apartment. He liked to go for walks, so I agreed that she should stay with him. A few days later, she visited me and said my cat had died. I was broken. How did it happen? She found him with his neck broken in front of the apartment building next to our house. His head was twisted, but my cat was still alive. But as she arrived to the vet, my cat was already dead. She said she thinks it was the man that killed him. We don't have any proof, but you know that feeling when you just know. I cried so much, and just writing about this makes me cry. He was my first cat, and he was so sweet. My mom still lives in the same house. She has 5 cats now, but none of them go out. The man still lives next to her. I'm with her during quarantine, and I see him all the time. He walks past our house, always looking up to see if someone's in there. I wish I could say, "Hey, creepy old guy, let's not meet." But unfortunately, I see him almost every day.
Hey friends, I want to thank you so much for checking out the video. So sorry about the delay in uploads. It's been pretty hectic here. I still need to figure out what's going on with my editing process. Some of my things, like my transition sound, In some of my files, I can't find them. But for now, I at least got this video out, so just want to go ahead and say thank you guys so much for being patient. And if you could be patient for a little bit longer, I can get my videos to be back to being some high quality stuff. But thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get some sleep now. I stayed up late to go ahead and edit this video again. And hopefully it's out tomorrow, which will be, well, I guess later today, Thursday, June 18th. So we'll see. All right. Good night, guys.